Welcome to Elevate, the podcast where we dissect exceptional achievers who are consistently raising the bar personally and professionally to produce extraordinary results in investment real estate and ultimately in their lives. Now here's your host, Tyler Chesser.
Elevate Nate. It's Tyler Chesser. I'm so thankful to have you here, and I'm also extremely thankful to be sitting here with Andrew Holden. Andrew, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and I want to welcome Elevate Nation back because our mission is to identify and apply how the best of the best raise the bar personally and professionally to achieve greatness in real estate and beyond. And Andrew's a perfect person for the show because he's really a master with so many years of experience and so much depth of experience. But this show is for leaders and those who are looking to achieve uncommon results and purposeful outcomes through real estate investing and ultimately in their lives. And so if you appreciate what we're doing, we would appreciate if you subscribe to the show, if you gave us a rating, a review. It would be very helpful. You know, our goal is to reach millions of people, and the only way to do that is for you to kind of share this. And, you know, if you get value out of our show, you know, certainly engage with our guests. And certainly, I think today is going to be a phenomenal show for you because we've got Andrew Holden. I want to tell you a little bit about Andrew before we dive in here. To tell you a little bit about Andrew, his education background, he's got a BA from Georgetown College, 1997, American Studies major, history, poli-sci, a double minor. He's a CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Member, which is really where our relationship began through that organization and the institute there. That was in 2010, so it's been almost a decade now as really kind of the best of the best in commercial real estate. And obviously, that was really the culmination of a lot of his learning, and he's applied that in so many different ways. He's also an ABA, Stonier Graduate School of Banking, and Wharton Leadership Certificate in 2016. In his work experience, he right now is the president, the market president of Park National Bank as of March 2018 until today. And you know, we sit here really at the end of 2019, which is so crazy. I can't believe it's already going to be 2020. And then prior to that, was involved with Commonwealth Bank and Trust Company from February 2007 until March 2018. Prior to that, like I said, he's got a depth of experience here. Old National Bank from March 2004 until March 2007. Before that, Fifth Third Bank, May 1997 to March 2004. And just let me just highlight, I mean, we're talking multiple cycles here. So I think we're going to have a really, really great conversation. And, you know, this is a man of many achievements. In 2017, he was the CCIM chapter president for the Kentucky chapter. 2016, he was the chair of the Kentucky Commercial Real Estate Conference. He's been recognized as 20 people to know in real estate and business first in 2016. And he's also, you know, a professional speaker at times. Kentucky Commercial Real Estate Conference. He's got experience there. He contributes all over the board when it comes to adding value to other people publicly. And, you know, he's spoken at many, many different events, including American Bankers Association of Commercial Real Estate Lending Conference, in addition to CCIM, of course. But Andrew, I mean, we love bios. I know it's like our world. Actually, Katie, my fiance, gives me grief because we love our awards and things like that. And she says it's such a thing for commercial real estate. But I'm curious to know, man, tell us more about Andrew behind the bio.
Well, you know, I think I am, you know, the poster boy from, you know, you can really accomplish anything you set your mind to. You know, grew up here in Louisville and followed in my parents' footsteps and went to Georgetown College, a small liberal arts school in Central Kentucky. And the plan was to go to law school. And, you know, with an American Studies degree and a minor in history and political science, you know, that's kind of the path, or you become a professor. And got engaged to my college sweetheart my senior year and realized that law school wasn't really a good option at the moment, and thought, well, I'll just go back here in a couple of years. And, you know, just stumbled into banking on accident, and, you know, the rest is kind of history. But, you know, going into a finance field without a finance background took a pretty steep learning curve. So, you know, I'm thrilled that I've been able to accomplish what I have, and very blessed because of it.
So was there a moment in your life where you said, because obviously to get to where you've been, and obviously you're not, I would imagine you would say that you're not necessarily at the mountaintop, right? You're going to continue to climb and to ascend. Was there a moment or was it a culmination of events that really caused you to, commit and kind of draw a line in the sand and say, look, I'm not going to live this ordinary life. I'm not going to, I'm not going to do what the norm, expects me to do. Was there a moment or was that a process for you?
Well, I mean, I've always been competitive. My parents always held me to a pretty high standard, and school was very important. And so entering into the professional field, it really wasn't uncommon for me to want to try to excel and learn more and do more. Really, if you bifurcate my career and say, okay, at what point did I get interested in real estate? I can tell you when it was. I mean, it was back around 2000 when I met a local. He's primarily a single family investor, but does some national speaking now. A guy by the name of Mike Butler. Met him, and I started just asking him questions, and for some reason we became friends, and he would give of his time and would actually drive me around as he went to look at his properties. And so that's really where I started becoming interested in real estate. And really that's where I spent the bulk of my career is in commercial real estate finance, and focused exclusively on it since around early 2001. And so that was the moment that really kind of transitioned me into, okay, what's this real estate thing all about? And how can I help people achieve their goals?
So you saw it as a vehicle for helping others, and was it something that was like, when Mike was kind of driving you around to different properties, was it a distinction for you that you weren't aware of before?
It was. I mean, I had always been fascinated by real estate, but really never understood the mechanics behind it. You make your money when you buy as a concept is something that never had really occurred to me. And to have Mike walk around and show me, whether it be a house or whether it be a fourplex or a small commercial building, here's why I bought it. Here's what I paid. Here's what I had to do, and here's the return that I hope to get from it. I really had just never thought about those types of things, and so that was really a pivotal moment for me as a young man just getting started in banking, to really understand the drivers, what drives that real estate decision, and how to look at it from an investment standpoint.
So were you, at that point, were you aware that real estate was going to allow you to create an uncommon life? Or was it just more of a this is a different avenue for making a living? Or was there a different distinction that you became aware of at that point?
Well, there was actually, not having a finance background in banking, if you're going to go into commercial banking, you really have two paths. One, you're going to be a business banker and make loans to companies, or you're going to go down the commercial real estate side. And again, not having a business background, I didn't really understand, okay, how are receivables, or how is that piece of equipment going to pay my loan back? What do I have to do versus I can drive down the street, I can see that building, the market will tell me what it's worth. And we can find out pretty quickly. And so for me, that made more sense. I mean, I've since learned the other side of the equation, but at the time, that made more sense to me. And so I basically just kind of jumped in the deep end of the pool. I was very fortunate to have worked with a lot of great teachers and mentors along the way that really, starting with Mike, that really kind of took me down the journey to learn a lot. As part of that, I learned a lot of what not to do, but it's certainly a valuable lesson.
Well, I definitely want to know more about mentors. We'll get into that. We'll talk about that, later in the show. But, it's funny because a lot of what you're talking about, I can relate to so much. When I got into the business, it became like this like moment that I looked around and said, wow, wait, all these buildings around me are valued based on cash flow, and wait a minute. So you can acquire that and build other systems in your life, and then all the different players that were involved, and obviously from a finance perspective, from a brokerage perspective, from many different service providers. And so it was just it's interesting because at some point in your family's trajectory, there's got to be someone who becomes aware of that. And it sounds like you didn't necessarily have that background, whether it was family or even just your own educational background. I just find it so interesting that you were able to find that. And your path was through a mentor, through someone who showed you the ropes. And so what a blessing.
For sure.
So what I'd like to know is, I want to fast forward just a little bit. What Elevate's all about is raising the bar and expanding past your limits, where your limits were before. You've transcended that. And so what I'd like to know is, fast forwarding to today, obviously as being the market president of Park National Bank, you've got to be continually pushing those limits. So what are you doing to raise the bar currently and elevate your own results?
Well, what I found is the most impactful is really you have to start from a point of gratitude. We're blessed that we live in the greatest country in the world with all the freedoms that we have, and we really have to not lose sight of that. And another mentor years ago told me, we can't change or we can't impact what happens to us, but we can impact how we respond. And so if we start every day from a point of gratitude, thankful for our family, thankful for our work, thankful for our friends, thankful for our colleagues, you really approach the day with a glass half full approach with, what are we going to do? So for me, that's the key. That's the number one thing. And then after that, it's, you got to be organized. You got to plan your work and work your plan. And then set detailed goals. And, let's take, commercial real estate transaction as an example. There's, 30, there could be 100 steps. Well, let's break it down into what are the tasks and what are the things that I need to do today to move that ball. And for me, that keeps me focused on how can today be the most productive as possible. I can get lost in the closing checklist that has 50 items on it, or I can focus on, okay, these 3 things will move the ball today. And then, finally, just a lifelong learner. We bonded over books and things like that. And I'm constantly trying to read and learn to get better, listen to podcasts and things like that. So for me, those are kind of the 4 things that I try to focus on. And I think that's a culmination of all those 4 things have been a key factor in my success.
That's exactly why we have this show, is because so many people, we get so hung up into, the nuts and the bolts of how we're going to do our deals, or the 100 steps on our closing checklist or our due diligence checklist or whatever. But it's about what you're just talking about starting with gratitude and coming from that place. Because like one thing, I think you and I love personal development, professional development, and that growth. And it's all about, what is your state now? You can't really start in a fearful or worried state when you start with gratitude. And you remember, gosh, we have so many things going for us right now. We're in an office that's got, air conditioning. We've got electricity. We've got the ability to communicate with thousands of people with just sitting here, just you and I. And also this, I want to highlight this. You can control how you respond. It's not what happens. It's your own reaction to what happens. And so whether you're leading a team of people, whether you're leading your family, whether you're leading yourself, certain circumstances will occur. It's not, hope is not a strategy. I hear that a lot. It's like, you can't hope that bad things don't happen to you. You expect them and you handle them. And you look at it as, well, you know what, maybe there's something for me to learn from this.
Right.
So I love that. And then also never stop learning. You got me there. You're bringing me into the tractor beam on that one, because there's so much to learn. And nothing is static in life, and certainly in business as well. So I really appreciate that. With all that, we're talking about what are you doing? What are you raising the bar, and how are you expanding your own limits? And I love the 4 steps there. What are you eliminating? What are you saying no to, and how are you getting better at saying no to those things?
Well, as other guests have mentioned, the book Essentialism. That was an eye-opening book, and I can't remember if we read that in our book club or not.
I think we did, actually. Yeah.
My team's reading it now, which is kind of exciting. But for me, that was really an eye-opener of where am I spending my time? How am I valuing my time? And I would say I'm doing better, but I still have a long way to go. I get asked to do a lot of different things, as you might imagine. And you just have to pick and choose. And every day you start with trying to focus on that. And there has to be real value there for me to give up my time. That's the one resource we can't have more of, right?
Yeah.
So I think we just have to look at the opportunity costs. Okay, if we're going to do this, we can't do that. But what's helped me really is to start from where do I want to spend my time. So Another thing that's been helpful for me is prioritizing sleep. I used to be, one of these guys that, would function on 3-4 hours of sleep. And, as I've gotten older, I can't do that anymore. So I try to go to bed early, get up early. And so I've made sleep a priority. And then you focus on, okay, there's a certain amount of time that I want to spend with my family. There's a certain amount of time that I want to spend with my friends or play golf or whatever I want to do on my downtime. And then you figure out, okay, I have X left. How can I be impactful? But I start with sleep, taking care of myself, my family, the downtime to keep me engaged and going to run through the wall every day. And then I focus on the work. That's helpful.
Yeah. And some of the key words that I'm hearing in there is priority, prioritizing sleep as an example. It's like, what's the most impactful activities that I can do that then, it's like, I don't know if you've ever read the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, but he talks about, well, what's the one thing that I can do that makes everything else either irrelevant or, unnecessary, and it's like, okay, well, if I can optimize my sleep, what does that do for my health? What does my health do for my output of my business, my energy levels? And, also if I'm prioritizing my family, we do so much work and we build our portfolios and we build our businesses, for an outcome. And if we lose sight of what our real priorities are, then, it doesn't make it worthwhile. So I think it's a great reminder for us to kind of course correct and say, all right, well, how can we be realistic with how we're spending our time and recalibrate, and reprioritize. So I really like that. You are such a habitual guy. I know that. And that's what you and I have really connected on. Obviously we mentioned you and I are in a book club and we love reading. But beyond that, I'd love to know what other habits are you, really kind of cultivating within your own life that have been very important for you?
Well, as I mentioned, try to go to bed early and get up early. And, I try to do it, 5 days a week where I'll get up and walk, 3 miles or so and listen to a podcast. Sometimes it's just thinking. But for me, that's a great way to start the day, either learning or thinking about, what's going on. Then I come back to the house and take a shower, get cleaned up, and then I'll read the Wall Street Journal. I'll go through and really try to get informed about what's going on in the day because, inevitably I'm going to get asked, whether it be by a client or a colleague or be in a meeting with, hey, what about this? What about that? And so, I need to stay informed of those types of things. And then, as I drive into the office, I would say about half the time, I don't even turn the radio on. I just sit there and think about, what do I need to do today? And I actually started from the wrong position. I should have started from before I leave the office the previous day. So one of the things I do is, I still use paper a lot. I'm still, I still like to have a piece of paper. There's some gratifying, I love the gratifying step every day of marking something off a list. And I know there's apps that can do it, but to me, it's just not as gratifying as marking it off the list. So every day before I leave the office, I print out through Outlook tomorrow's calendar. And I sit there and think, okay, what do I need to do to get ready for tomorrow's calendar? And then I prioritize what are the things that have to be done tomorrow. So I don't have to think about it. When I walk in the office, I can hit the ground running. I'm ready to roll. And so then I go home and make sure I go to bed early and get up. And normally by the time I'm in the office, I've already had a cup of coffee. I've already been on my walk. I've already kind of thought through what needs to happen. And I can really get in and start being impactful day one. That's kind of my day in a nutshell. Some days the days end at 5 and some days the days at the office end at 10. It just depends on what's going on. But I try to do that every day. And when I can't say it's 100%. I'd say I'm about 95%. Some days you don't ever get back to the office when you're out. But I can tell you the days that I start the day and I don't have that piece of paper waiting for me on my desk when I get in, the day just doesn't go as well. Yeah. Because I have to stop, take the time to think about what do I have to do.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, that's been hugely impactful. And I know a couple of your guests have a similar approach. And, for me, that's been a big key.
Well, success leaves clues, so I think a lot of us, have tried things that haven't worked. And when we find things that work, we stick with it. And it's no mistake that many people share a lot of the same habits. Many of the most successful people share a lot of the same habits. And really what you're talking about is preparation. It's preparation. It's spending some time in thought, because if you're just running things off the seat of your pants, then, it's not going to work out the way that you had hoped it would. And, spending time in thought, I like the thought of, you're driving to the office and it's like, a lot of times it's like, let's just turn the radio off and what do we need to think about today? Sometimes I don't know about you, but if I have a negotiation coming up or I have a discussion that I need to have, I will walk through perhaps the flow of that conversation.
For sure.
And I've noticed that when I do that, inevitably it goes a lot better. And
because you're preparing for the worst, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's preparation. So sure. That's a really good one. So tell me about, investments, not necessarily, financial investments or securities or real estate or anything like that. Tell me about an investment that you've made in yourself or in your business in the past 6 months to a year that has really been impactful, extremely impactful for you.
For me, really, we've spent a ton of time building the bank. And so where I've really spent trying to take my skills to the next level have been really just focusing on books. I can't hit the 52 a year like you do, but, really trying to read at least a book a month. Mm-hmm. Some months I've done better, some months, not so much, but for me, that's really where I've spent my time. I know, you and a couple of your guests have, hired coaches and things like that. And that's not something that I've done, but part of that's because, I've almost got that built in within the bank. So, my boss is a big coach. Our CEO and our president are huge coaches of mine. And I've learned a ton from them. So I've had that built in. Now, some of that's investment of my time traveling to Newark, Ohio, where our corporate headquarters is. But as far as kind of stroking the check, my wife gets irritated about the Amazon bill, and 5 or 6 books getting delivered at a time. I'm sure you can relate. But that's really where I've invested currency has been in books, and time has been really engaged with many of the leaders around the company who really challenged me and have helped me really grow.
Mm-hmm. I think I see an investment as whether your time or your currency or what have you, and spending your time in reading and learning and contemplating is something that allows you to be a better leader, right? So you don't have to be necessarily, sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I read a book and it's like, it's not necessarily what I learned, but what's in between the lines here? What's missing? Is this really appropriate, or is this the whole story? And so I think I don't know about you, but each and every book I read, it's like, okay, the information gap has been filled a little bit, but now I've noticed that there's more of an information gap out there.
For sure.
And my curiosity continues to push me. And so I really admire that, because if you think about it, most people who are leading other people, it's like, well, how can we have more meetings, or how can we do these things? And I'm investing my time in that. But what you're doing is like, we're playing chess here. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily have to be, playing checkers and king me, but it's a slow, long game, and it's a strategy. So
sure.
I really like that.
One of the things that I think is really interesting, and I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but it happens to me all the time, where if I'm reading a book and you really take the time to really read and reflect on it and take notes and underline and highlight all those types of things. It's interesting as you're thinking about what you're reading or what you just read, how other ideas unrelated to the book really kind of pop in. And for me, that's been hugely impactful. You think about, as you're trying to lead a group of people, and that's where I've really spent a significant amount of my time now since joining Park National Bank is, how can I be the best leader? How can I be a servant leader? How can I set an example? How can we elevate, to use your term, the entire team to achieve greatness? And, it's really spending that time, in books, and I love biographies, and I love to hear how companies are successful. And sometimes it's fun to hear how they aren't, and maybe learn from that too.
Yeah.
And that's really where I try to spend my time. And with every one, you pick up something.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't even realize it at the time, and then you realize, a month later, gosh, I remember that in the book.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Well, it is. I really like biographies too. I've read a few this year that have really stood out to me, and just one in particular, for some reason, it just reminded me of, I read Walt Disney's biography earlier this year, and I'll tell you what, man, half of that book, I was so stressed out because I'm like, oh my God, is he going to make it? But obviously, everyone in the world knows Walt Disney's name. So obviously he made it, and his family continues to, to reap the benefits of that. But it's so inspiring to say, no matter what challenges we go through, as long as you just continue to press forward, you can and will, succeed. And, but with that said, I'm curious to know, obviously it hasn't always been home runs every time you've stood up to the plate.
Sure.
What type of failures have you experienced, and maybe just one or two examples of something that maybe at the time seemed like, wow, this is putting me out of the game, or whatever, and it maybe has been a seed for a later success?
Sure. Well, there's really one specific and then a more general comment, I would say. The specific comment is bankers, at least pre 2007, 2008, had philosophy as there's certain deals that are just no brainers. I mean, how can we get hurt?
Mm-hmm.
And we learned through what happened in 2007, 8, and beyond, that isn't always true. And for me, the painful lesson that I had is we got a referral from a law firm in town that was working with the developer coming into town, and they just needed us to do an acquisition loan on some dirt, and they would come and refinance it with a construction loan sometime afterwards. I mean, the construction was too big for us to handle, but we could certainly handle the acquisition for them. It was a beautiful piece of property, 48 acres, and a little bit out past where the growth was, but to assemble 48 acres, they needed to do it that way and to get the cost in. But the most interesting thing about the deal was the equity into the deal was coming from Lehman Brothers. And so, we even called it around the bank, the Lehman deal. When's the Lehman deal close?
Yeah.
We were so excited about it. And,
wow.
So we closed the deal in late 2007, and it was a continuing care retirement community, and the developer opened sales office, and the next day Lehman declared bankruptcy.
Oh my God.
So here's a deal that we thought was a no-brainer, and then it wasn't.
I mean, was there a way that you could have identified that, or is that, that's luck, bad luck?
No, Lehman Brothers is one of the oldest most profitable investment banking firms in the country, in the world, really.
Mm-hmm.
And, just got caught sideways. The same thing had happened to Bear Stearns a couple months earlier. And so, there was just a ripple effect, and, we did everything we could to try to keep them engaged in a way for, to stave off the deal. But at the end of the day, they had to do what was best for them, and what's best for them is give the property back to the bank, and ultimately sold it to a client, and he built some apartments on there, so that worked out good for him. But that was an important lesson for me of where if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And for us, we kind of approach that, and a cousin to that really is if you really think about some failures is the world changed in 2008. Mm-hmm. What we thought was true, all of a sudden wasn't true. And, just that process of really trying to identify, okay, what is the best option for the bank? What's the best option for the client? What do we do with this piece of property? To try to figure out what the thing was worth was like catching a falling knife. The value was, I have no idea. And you ask an appraiser and you're just going to get more depressed. It just was crazy. And so, for us, what I did learn through that process is you really just need to look at, alternative use strategies. What could we do with that asset? Is it land? Is it a retail center? Is it an office building? What can we do with that? And then you also have to look at, who's the person behind them, and really having a relationship with that person and really trying to understand that. Is that going to limit all the risk out of the deal? Absolutely not. But, I learned to focus a lot more on, what I had, as opposed to, another adage that some bankers, I never use it, but some bankers said, if you've got dirt, you won't get hurt. Well, that message went out the window as we were trying to figure out what to do. That was a painful time for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I tried to do through that process is recognize that my client and I had the same problem. Neither one of us intentionally got us to this spot. Neither one of us was happy about why we were here or how we were here, and how can we work together to get out of it. We certainly didn't. The bank I was with at the time, we certainly didn't want to have to take property back. We weren't in the business of trying to develop or sell property or own property. So to the extent we could, we tried to find a way to work through it, and that was a valuable lesson to really, be a problem solver. And it made me a better lender, for sure.
So tell me about, because I mean, we're talking a decade plus a year, and most real estate cycles, most people would say, just keep it simple. Every 10 years, you've got a cycle, right? And neither of us claim to be an economist by any means, but obviously we're not talking about the same, it's never going to be the same situation in a very complex global financial system. But, how do you apply that sort of learning towards what happened then, as well as what's potentially happening now? I mean, some people say, you know what, it's always cyclical, so what goes up must come down in whatever ways, and perhaps it's, whatever may happen. It could be bad, could be, flatline, could continue to grow, right? But, what's your learning from that? How are you applying that experience into today's environment?
Sure. So what going through that process taught me was cash is king, number one, because a lot of people were able to pick up assets at a very attractive price. Number two is really look at, don't get lulled to sleep by a loan to value. Really evaluate, what the appropriate debt level is for that piece of property. Because for a while, and you and I talked about this a bunch. I mean, we've had historically low cap rates for the last several years, and an 80% loan to value at a bargain basement cap rate for some, on both sides of the equation, whether you're a borrower or a lender, think they're fine. Well, cap rates don't have to move a whole lot before most of the equity evaporates. And so, that's one of the things that it taught me, was really to take a more practical look at, okay, buying real estate is a business decision. Financing real estate is a business decision. Where do those two lines cross? Where does it make sense to mitigate the risk for everybody? That doesn't mean that, that the folks that over levering it, in my opinion, are bad or making a bad decision. It's just, I look at it from a different perspective. I look at it from, at what point does it make sense? At what point is there less risk in there for all parties? And so that, to me, that was one of the biggest things that I learned then that I'm applying now. And, we're certainly experiencing a very frothy market today with credit readily available. Kind of reminds me of 2006 heading into early 2007 to some extent. I think where we're sitting today, I don't think real estate's going to tip us into recession like we saw in 2007, 2008, but, we're a much more global economy today. We've got trade war, we've got unrest in the Middle East. We're starting to see manufacturing data that suggests that maybe that segment is slowing down a little bit. So, we don't have a crystal ball here, but, I would guess that within the next 18 to 24 months, we're going to see a headwind. And there's going to be an impact from that. The other thing I wonder is, at least what I'm reading, and you have to tell me if you're seeing something different, but at least what I'm reading, foreign investment in real estate is trailing off a little bit. And that's what's been keeping cap rates low. Yep. And if that dries up, we'll start seeing some things. We'll start seeing some other things kind of run up a little bit. Another thing that I learned, and this kind of started as it came out of the recession, was that a tax strategy should not drive a real estate decision. And 1031s have been hot, but I have seen so many clients buy something that was not core to their portfolio, was outside of what their skill set or area of expertise. And I'm not talking about buying a triple net, where it's just clipping a coupon, but something completely outside of their scope, just to avoid paying tax, and at a cap rate that may or may not have made sense. I mean, so that's the other thing I learned out of that, is that, that a tax strategy shouldn't drive the business decision. The business decision should drive the purchase. And if there's a tax benefit because of it, then that's great. That was another thing that I learned.
Well, there's a lot there. One thing I read the 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari. He's one of my favorite authors. But one of the things that became aware of, it's like you sit and you think, when you read, certain things. And what he's talking about is the current, global, economy. And we've never been, as you said, we've never been in this sort of environment before. And it's much more complex than any one government, any one person, entity, corporation can grasp. I mean, there's so many different things happening. So I guess the big takeaway, at least in my opinion, is just be aware and be ready to pivot, be ready to, adapt. And really, what you said earlier is like, I think it's so important for us to develop ourselves, our teams, the people surrounding us, because it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond, right? It's like what you said earlier. And so, I guess what's one suggestion that you would have for people in this current environment to ensure that they're succeeding, over the next, call it 10, the next decade, the next cycle?
I would say, in my opinion, when you look at a real estate investment, you need to have your exit strategy in mind first.
Mm-hmm.
Because that drives, in my opinion, A, the price that you can pay, B, how you should finance it, et cetera. And I think some folks have lost sight of that being an important part of it. So I think that would be the one thing that I would say, if you find a piece of property you like that fits within your investment strategy, think about, okay, what's the hold period? And factor that into, okay, how are we going to structure that deal?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think right now that really isn't contemplated. And then you throw off, the potential change in cap rates. Interest rates have been at a historical low level for, let's be honest, for some people, as long as they've been in the business,
mm-hmm.
rates have been this low. I mean, when I got into commercial real estate, an 8 or 9% rate was what the best borrowers got. And there's a lot of deals, you probably see them too. There's a lot of deals that don't work if the rate has a 5 in front of it.
Yeah.
And, I have those conversations with people that call me all the time, and yeah, it works great on today's rates, but what happens if you can't renew the loan? What happens if, you want to sell it in 10 years? What if you can't? What if you need to
mm-hmm.
refinance
mm-hmm.
and the rate's 6%? You can't bank, pun intended, on rent appreciation. I mean, it might be there, it might not.
Right.
So let's think about, how to best structure this deal and move forward. One of the other favorite things that I have is certain asset classes where they don't factor in CapEx, where they don't factor in, hey, we might need to spend money to maintain the value of this building, whether it's putting new windows in or new carpet, or we might need to put new HVAC units, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are real expenses that have to be done. And I know there's tax strategies around all that stuff, but you still have to have the cash to do it.
Right.
And a lot of people never think about that in their investment recap as they make a decision. So
mm-hmm.
that's another thing I would suggest.
Well, it's being conservative and expecting the unexpected. It's expecting the worst, having a strategy, being ready to pivot no matter what. So, no, that's really good. I want to transition, just slightly. Who are your role models? I mean, who do you model? I mean, I'm looking at your desk here. We've got a few different books, one of which I want to talk to you after our show here. But I'm just curious, because you obviously you're continuously learning, but who do you emulate, or who would you like to emulate?
Well, I would say I'll bifurcate it again. I mean, I've been blessed to have several great role models throughout my career, from starting with Mike Butler to people I've worked with at each of the banks that I've been along, to even directors at my prior employer. Being there, I had the blessing of really sitting down and getting to know them. Our current CEO of Park National Bank, David Troutman, is just, he has so many qualities that I just admire so much. And if I can just get 10% of what he has, that'll be great. He has this uncanny ability to make someone feel like they're the most important person to him at that very moment. And that's something I'm working on, but he's just got it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, really cool. That's on the professional side. On the personal side, got to start with my parents. I mean, they set great examples for me. They encouraged me. They supported me. Anything I wanted to do, I could do it. And that was fantastic. Also, my maternal grandfather, I still stand by this. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, and just has a high school education, but he knew how to fix anything. And I've just got great fond memories of, fixing the car with him. And he worked at NCR fixing cash registers and things like that. So he just knew how to mechanically fix things, and was into computers. I mean, back when, computers were run by cassette tapes and programs and things like that. And just one of the most brilliant people I've ever come across in my life. And he really set the example for me of, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even try if you're not going to give it your all. And I thought that was really great, because we see so many people that just kind of, dip their toe in and instead of jumping in the pool. And so, I certainly did that. And then, throughout my adult life, I would say it's my wife. I mean, she's the most loving, caring person I have ever come across in my life. And I would not be what I am today or who I am today without her love and support. And, I try to be the best husband I can every day, and, fall short frequently, but just try to commit it to do better every day.
Well, it's a great reminder that we can't do this alone, not only from a personal standpoint, whether it's your spouse, your family, or just having that, perspective of your parents. I love the thought of, if you're going to do something, you do it the best you can, give it your all. And that's what Elevate is all about. It's give it everything you have, leave nothing to spare, and leave it all out on the field, so to speak.
Yep.
So I want to transition again to goals, and we're going to talk about goals. I mean, because obviously to do what you've done in your life and that you continue to do, you've had to be intentional, right? So tell me about a goal that you've been proud of accomplishing, whether it's large or small, within the past 12 months or so.
Well, that's easy. We're sitting in it. So March of 2018, I joined Park National Bank. It was me, my cell phone, and my laptop. Which
I appreciated the call. I remember getting a call from this very prestigious man. That was excellent.
It was a lot of people were shocked that I made that move.
Yep.
But for me, it was a great opportunity and a great challenge, and it's been fantastic. And, starting with, building the team, there's 9 of us now, to finding a location. I mean, I was on the other side of a real estate deal for a while, and,
mm-hmm.
and trying to decide, okay, what's the right place to be? How much space do I need? Negotiating a lease, all the stuff you do every day, I had to live with for 6 months or so. And it certainly changed perspective on a lot of things. And you guys that spend your time slugging it out as brokers, I have a whole new respect. My wife's a broker on the residential side, and I thought that was rough, but the things you all have to contemplate and think about and advise on, I mean, it's real money. And
mm-hmm.
I've got tremendous respect for you. So, I mean, to go from March of 2008 with it just me and looking around in my office at home going, okay, what do I do now, to being in 5,500 square feet of a beautiful office.
It's gorgeous.
And be profitable, to be growing the team, to me is the highlight of my career at this point. And
that's awesome.
We only have one way to go from here, and we've got a great team, and we're excited that we're excited where we are at 19, and just really happy with performance, and can't wait to finish the year and go on and achieve great things next year.
This is a distinction because for me, it's like, you had a great thing going already. I mean, you had already accomplished so much success.
People thought I was crazy.
You had an opportunity to kind of jump off a ledge and say, well, you know what? I'm going to go through the unknown here.
Yep.
And obviously it was probably a very uncomfortable process in many ways. But then now that was an awesome statement. You said, like, it's one of the most proud things you've had. It's maybe the defining moment of your career thus far. And I know you'll continue to raise the bar beyond that. But it's a reminder for everyone, because there's something that, you're a little bit fearful of, maybe it's a big move like what Andrew's done, or it could be something small and insignificant, but it's about moving beyond that fear and having courage and, taking that leap of faith and letting the momentum carry you through, because, it's so satisfying when you get to the other side of that. And, you continue to do that, you just become something that you never knew you could become before. And that's what Elevate's all about. So as you continue to, press your limits, what are you uncomfortably working towards now? How are you raising that bar now?
Well, one of the things that I think is, the most critical component of the secret sauce that we have, right, is our culture. And if we have the right culture, we can attract and retain the right talent. If we can attract and retain the right talent, then what can stop us? And so, we're big protectors of our culture. And that's something that's something that you have to work out each and every day. And as a team, we talk about it all the time. If we boil it down to a few things that's on the bottom of every agenda when we get together, it's posted throughout the office. So we really understand who we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. And so, it's not a struggle per se, but it's something we're uber focused on. It's something that we really take very, very seriously. And I believe that is the key ingredient of the secret sauce. I mean, we've got great products, we've got great people, but all that coming together and that collaborative team environment and that culture that makes people want to come to work every day, in my opinion, is where I'm spending the bulk of my time. And my management team with me is spending the bulk of our time trying to protect, nurture, and grow that. And so I'd say that's the challenge right now, is to make sure that we maintain that, and that we course correct as necessary. I mean, we ask ourselves quarterly, is this who we still are? Is this who we still want to be? We haven't made too many changes yet because we took the time on the front end to think about it, but we want to continue to do that, and we'll evolve, and it'll be interesting to see, 5 years from now, what's important to us then.
So the process has been kind of laying out the vision of, who we are really from the core, and who do we want to be?
Correct.
Why do we want to be that?
Correct.
And continuing to question that. I love that. Because the other thing too is, like, you see this so much where, a company lays out the vision. It's like, guys, we talked about that 20 years ago. That's not who we are anymore. The environment has changed completely. We've got to have a different outcome. So that's I think a big distinction is course correct and continue to ask that question conventional wisdom, whether it's your own conventional wisdom or others. So that's really, really important. What's the driving force behind what you do, Andrew?
Wow. Well, as I mentioned, I mean, I've always kind of been driven to do well, and I've just kind of built upon that, providing for my family. As a leader now, running a market for the bank, I've got a lot of families depending upon me to make the right decisions and smart decisions, whether it's, what types of loans we want to do, the people we want to hire, how we want to manage our expenses. And so I think about that a lot, and, I'm probably more worried about letting them down than I am letting myself down, if that makes sense. So, that's really what keeps me engaged and keeps me focused on how do we continue to grow. And then it's not getting complacent. I mean, I'm a big believer of celebrating success. Matter of fact, we have one of my colleagues, we named the CFO, the Chief Fund Officer, and her job is, on top of other things, but her part-time job, so to speak, is to make sure we celebrate our success. So we talk about what we've accomplished on a weekly basis, and her job is to say, all right, time for a party. And it might be meeting for drinks. It might be bringing lunch in. We're talking about going to race go-karts, which I think will be so much fun. But to celebrate that success and grow from that and get energized from that and keep moving down the field. So, I think that's really what's motivates me. It motivates me is to not let them down and continue to grow.
And it's just a good reminder to, it's not just about making money. Obviously we all want to build wealth. We want to provide for our families, but it's also about contributing to others, creating that environment where you have a culture that people can enjoy what they do. They can also provide to their families, and they can also enjoy those moments of success. That's one of the things that I've got to remind myself on a frequent basis, is like, slow down and just pat yourself on the back for a second,
Right.
And I know that most A players are in that boat too. So I think it's a really good reminder from that. So thanks for doing that. So what I want to do now is I want to transition into our rapid fire section. We call it the Rare Air Questionnaire. And the reason why we do that is because what we're talking about, it kind of gets you to that elevated point where, most people gave up. Most people gave up, a couple hours ago, when it really wasn't even that hard, but their mind told them it was. And we pushed past that limit. So we've talked a lot about books. We love books. That's how you and I really got to begin our relationship, which is such a beautiful memory for me. So I'd like to know, what's the most impactful book you've ever read and why?
Well, as many of your other guests, I'm going to completely ignore the one book and give you a couple that have, at least in the last couple of years, have been very, very impactful. So I hope you'll provide me that latitude. One of them we even read together, and these are pairs, really: Extreme Ownership and Dichotomy of Leadership. those really reinforced for me what was really important. And I really enjoyed the extreme ownership side of the leader needs to take responsibility and set the tone. But then the second book, Dichotomy of Leadership, you have to let your people have enough room to operate. And that's something that really rang true to me. And that's something that I've really kind of changed my management style around, to be clear about what we want to accomplish and then get out of their way. And so for me as a leader growing and building a team from scratch, I mean, those two books were very, very instrumental. And we probably went to Dichotomy of Leadership last year. Mm-hmm. And so that was huge. Another book that really kind of keeps me focused on, running the business is a book called Memos from the Chairman by E. Greenberg. He's the former chairman of Bear Stearns. And if you forget what actually happened to Bear Stearns after he no longer was running it, it's really just a collection of memos where he reminds his team about, there's simple things that create success. One is focusing on going after the right clients, watching your expenses, and doing the right thing. And it's just an interesting read to think back. He's talking about buying a fax machine and things like that. But it's just a good thing to kind of remind you of focus on the things that are really measurable, and spend your time there as opposed and ignore the rest of it. So that was really good. And then a book or two books really that were introduced to me when I joined the bank, and actually during the recruiting process, they told me about them. They're both by the Arbiter Institute. One is Outward Mindset. The other one is Leadership and Self-Deception. And those have been two really impactful books for me over the last year. And I'll start with Leadership and Self-Deception first. It really is about, we can deceive ourselves and ignore the facts around us. So we really kind of have to step out and really look beyond ourselves and really see what's going on, rather than, oh, it's fine. No, it may not be. And then with the Outward Mindset, it really changed perspective. So what the Outward Mindset teaches you is, human nature is to be selfish, to only think about ourselves. Well, the Outward Mindset says, well, you should really be focused on what the other person is concerned about. And I've been able to use that as I've worked with clients. So, client comes and says, hey, we want to borrow money to do X. And okay, well, what are you really trying to accomplish? What's most important to you? Rather than going back and forth and negotiating a term sheet 5 times, let's start with what's really important and really focus on them. And the really cool thing is, not only are those skills applicable in business, they're also applicable in our personal life. So, when my wife asks me to do something, it's really, okay, well, what's really going on? Let's focus on, what really is she asking me to do? What really is driving that, and what focused on what can I do to help her? What can I do to help my client? And that is truly impactful. And I encourage you and everyone listening to read it. I mean, I would say most of you will be convicted at some point throughout the point. That's me. I've done that. Just focus on ourselves. And so, if you read the book, it talks about being in the box, and you don't want to be in the box. And we have a little joke around here of, are you in the box? And that's just a great way to kind of move on what might be a little tense discussion. Are you in the box? And so those are the books, at least in the last 2 years, that have been really, really impactful. If you think about broader, I mean, the Bible has so many great lessons in there, and I would probably say that's the most impactful book. But in recent past, those are ones that have been huge.
Well, I think there's such a humility that comes along with reading these type of books and allowing them to really impact you as much as they have. I mean, you talk about, well, am I in the box? It's like, well, first of all, you got to admit if you're in the box, right? If you do that, then okay, well, what steps do I need to take to get out of the box? And there's a lot there. We'll put links in the show notes to all these different books, and I'll be definitely checking them out. I've only read a couple of these, so I'm starting to get like, man, I got some deficiencies here. But I really like also I wanted to make just a couple of notes here on this. You're talking about memos from a chairman, the simple steps, to success. I mean, right. So many people are always like, what's the secret? What's the secret? And really, it's just simple. It's consistency. It's
Right.
doing the right thing. It's, having persistence and, educating yourself, applying that education. And really, it's not this crazy, formula that most people look and say, well, wow, if only I could just, buy the formula and have that, then everything would make sense. But it's simple. Is it easy? No,
Right.
but it's simple. So I just wanted to make that note.
For sure.
What's the biggest way that you elevate your life on a daily basis?
I mean, I think it's that perspective of gratitude. I am so blessed, and I've been able to accomplish so much. That if I start every day from that perspective, we're going to have a great day. And the days that I come home and my wife says, "How was your day?" and I say, "Oh my gosh, it was awful." I mean, 1% of the time because of that.
Right.
I mean, stuff happens, life happens,
Of course.
right? But 99% of the time when you start the day with, "It's going to be a great day. I'm so thankful that I have my family. I'm so thankful I get to do what I love." It takes an awful lot to move you off that if you start from that perspective. And so I would say that's the one thing that really has taken it to a whole new level. And I actually learned that from a client during the recession, to be honest. So I picked up the phone and called him, and he was a builder developer. And I said, how's it going? He said, "Fantastic." And I was like, "Excuse me?" Darkest day, storm clouds. Yeah. And he said, "Fantastic." And I said, "Well, I'm just surprised that you'd say fantastic." And he's like, "Well, if I tell you it's awful, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills tomorrow, then that's reality.
Mm-hmm.
And if I say I'm fantastic, things are great, I've got these opportunities, I'm trying to figure out how to do this and that, the outcome is more likely to happen." And so I kind of took that and summed it up to gratitude of, let's approach life with we're blessed, let's build upon that, and let's come at it from that point of view.
That is really good. Because, one of the things that really stuck with me is Tony Robbins talks about, your state, your story, your strategy. Your state, how you feel physically, then sometimes becomes your story. So if you can hack this system to where your state is a state of gratitude, you're thankful for the good things. And obviously we all have challenges in our life and our business. And then your story becomes, wow, these things are going great. It's fantastic, even though the sky's falling to everyone else. Then your strategy becomes, well, I'm a problem solver. I'm not dwelling on the challenges. I'm dwelling on the great things, and where focus goes, energy flows, right? So, great things are happening. So, more great things happen from that. So it's a slippery slope in either direction. I think I want to go in the right direction.
Sure.
So
sure.
That's really good.
For sure.
What's the best way or the number one way that you elevate others around you?
You have to lead by example. You can't ask people to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. And so, for me, whether it's, the book club we're doing here, I always have the book read first. I always have notes in there. I make it pretty well known that, this is a big deal and it's something that we should do together as a team and talk about. So leading by example is a big deal. The other thing is, listen. I had my management team in this very room earlier today, just to bounce ideas off of them. And, some of them were, tell me what I can do better. And I was serious. I mean, let's talk through where we are. And, you really need to listen, to be heard. If you just hear the noise, that's one thing, but actually listen to the words and not speak, just sit there and listen. And a little trick that I learned is, as you're going through that and you're really taking a hard look at what's going on is, okay, what I think I heard you say is X, and repeat it back just to make sure that context, everything's covered. And that goes a long way. So that's what I try to do, with my team here is lead by example and listen to them. It's one of those things. It's like being married. I can aspire to be the best, and I don't know that I'll ever hit that summit. But if every day I try to hit toward that goal, that's the objective.
I love it. And there's more to listening than just hearing the words, right?
Yep.
It's seeking to understand. It's clarifying, right. And that can be applied in so many different ways, within ourselves and with our own relationships. But Andrew, this has been absolutely outstanding, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And I know Elevate Nation is better off for that. So if Elevate Nation wanted to stay connected with you and learn more about you and your business, how can they do that?
Best way would be email, and email address is aholden, HOLDEN, @parknationalbank.com.
Outstanding. And then also obviously visit them, parknationalbank.com. Like Andrew said, they have a lot of great services, a lot of great products that they do offer for real estate investors as well as commercial real estate occupants. So definitely visit them there. But also beyond that, I mean, they're a partner. They're a partner in your business. They can help advise you to make appropriate decisions. And that, is sort of a rare thing in today's marketplace. So I definitely want to take Andrew up on that. But what I want to remind Elevate Nation to do is to take, implement repetition into what you're doing. You've got to listen to this episode again. You've got to take notes because, I did my best here and took as much notes as I could. And I know that I've got to listen to it again myself because there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom. There's a lot of things to implement. There's a lot of things to take action on. And, if you can start from that place of gratitude, be grateful for the opportunity to listen to what Andrew's talking about here today. That's going to put you in a position to really take action on it. But also the biggest thing here, and I just mentioned a few times, it's take massive action. What you've heard today, don't just consume it. Make it a part of your world, make it a part of your reality. And until next time, I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank everybody for listening. Share this with a friend and allow them to take massive action, elevate their own results. And Andrew, thanks again, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Elevate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to elevate your results by taking immediate action on what you learned. For more, visit tylerchesser.com.